So let's talk about what to do or what not to do for the perfect setup, in my opinion, on the new Toyota Tacoma. What we've got here is a TRD Sport. And I know this is a matter of preference. Some people don't like the Sport, some people prefer the off-road. There is a difference in suspension when it comes to ride quality and handling. I prefer the kind of tighter, firmer effect that I get by having the Sport. And I love the hood scoop, even though it's not functional. But what is the perfect setup? Or lack thereof, I guess. First off, we got to talk about lifts, right? I know everybody wants a lifted Toyota Tacoma. Well, a lot of people. And me, I love a lifted truck. I think it's the best look that you can get. But there are sacrifices when you do that. Number one is money, if you do it right. And number two is really handling and ride quality. You know, I've had 2 or 3 different lifts on Tacomas over the years. I've had block and spacer. I've gone with the Bilstein adjustable shocks, which, by the way, is the best way to go. But even those are going to change the geometry of the truck a little bit, and it's going to change the way the truck feels, the way it handles, the firmness of it. When I had a block and spacer on my, I don't know, it was probably a 2018, 2020, I think it was, Tacoma, it was horrid. First of all, the ride quality was out the window. It was gone. It was too rough. I felt every little bump in the road. It was bad. And then I blew a seal underneath on one of the arms, and oil, grease, whatever, leaked out all over the place. It was not a good situation. I would never go with a block and spacer again. It's a horrible combination. The Bilstein, they only go so far, right? They were enough to enable me to level out the truck, which is the look I was going for back then. But even so, I had problems in the installation. For some reason, they took off one of the brake calipers and didn't tighten it down. It was bouncing around under there. That's really not a problem with the lift itself. That was the install. But still, I didn't have the same ride quality that I had before. I think the best way to go is just to leave it stock and mess with the wheels and the tires. Notice mine looks almost level. I mean, it's not quite level. If you look at the gap in the front as compared to the gap in the back, I'm talking about between the top of the tire and the fender. Obviously, it's not perfectly level. But in this version of the Tacoma, it almost seems like Toyota kind of leveled it out a little bit themselves. It doesn't have quite as much rake in the front, stock, because my truck is stock when it comes to suspension, as the previous generation or the third generation had. Now, as far as tires go, you know, obviously you're going to get different ride quality based upon the tire you choose. If you go with an all-terrain, which I think is the best option, it's going to be much better than, say, a mud terrain like what is on the Jeep here beside me. These I would never recommend unless you live off-road. Otherwise, it's just not worth what you sacrifice in ride quality, in my opinion. So I would stick to some sort of all-terrain. I've got the new BF Goodrich KO3s. So far they seem fine to me. In the past, I've been a big proponent of the Falcon Wild Peaks, but they also upgraded, I guess, their tires. They've now are, let's see, an AT4W, and the ratings were lesser than the KO3s, which is why I went with the KO3s. Now, as far as size goes, these are a 275/70 R18. I would probably stick with a 17-inch if you can, but I wanted to stick with what came on the truck as far as the wheel size went. And they're the best that you can get, in my opinion, and my experience, without having any kind of rubbing. Now, the wheels, they do have a plus 25mm offset. That brings them out from the inside of the fender well, if you will. That is what enables me to have this size tire without rubbing anywhere in the corners, right? and I definitely didn't want that. You know, I see a lot of comments, people talking about bigger tires that they've put on the Tacoma, and there's no problem. Well, except during some situations where they have a little bit of a rub. Now, for me, a little bit of a rub is still a rub, and it's a problem. It doesn't fit. If your tire rubs any part of the truck, it is not right. Something is wrong. So this is the biggest tire in my experience that you can go with the 25 millimeter offset, and that matters, to not have any rub whatsoever and still get a nice aggressive look on the truck. Now, part of this might be personal preference, of course. This is how I like the look on my truck, and I realize others are going to prefer something else, you know, smaller tires, different wheels, whatever. But in general, I would stay away from anything bigger than this size tire, depending on the offset that you go with. Now, further, the damn air dam on the front, if you have it, it's such a horrible thing. It's aesthetically unpleasing for me, and I know a lot of people agree. There are a few people that actually like that air dam across the front, chin strap, whatever you want to call it, but it's in the way. In the winter time, if you're going through any kind of heavy snow, it's going to become a snowplow. You're going to be helping to clear the roads. If you're off-roading and you're going over things that are sticking up a little bit, it's going to catch, it's going to rip, and it's bolted onto the front part of the truck here. So obviously, if it catches on anything and starts to tear or pull off, it's going to damage the front end of your truck. It shouldn't be there. Why is it there? For fuel economy. You know, Toyota, like every other manufacturer, has to meet two things: public expectation and government regulation, right? That's why they put it on. They made it very simple to take off. It's 8 or 9 screws, that's it. And you don't have to do anything else, except maybe plug those holes in the lower control arms. You do need to do that so you don't have that kind of humming sound under there. But that's the other thing, or the next thing, I guess, that I would recommend you do for the perfect setup on the Toyota Tacoma. Lastly, if you remove that air dam, underneath you're going to have some kind of a cheapo plastic or felt. It's like a composite material. It's kind of a skid plate. It's not really a skid plate. Toyota calls that a gravel guard. That needs to be replaced. Now, what I'm going with, and I haven't put it on yet because I'm waiting for the first oil change to do it while I'm under there, but it is the skid plate, this particular one, and it's also the cat shield sitting up there from Miller Cat. Now, why do I recommend the Miller Cat version? Because they have two big, I would call them almost, not quite, but almost oversized access panels for oil changes. Why would you ever put a skid plate on the truck that does not have access panels for oil changes? You have to change the oil, right? Whether you do it yourself or not. Either you or the person doing it is going to have to take that skid plate completely off every time you change the oil. Do you really want to mess with that? Do you want somebody in a shop doing that, ripping that thing off every time they change the oil? Not something that I would want. I want something that's functional, which the Miller Cat version is, as well as has the proper openings to change the oil. And to me, it's a shame that any manufacturer puts one out that doesn't have that. It's crazy. Anyway, those are 4 things that I think that make up the perfect setup, suspension-wise, ride quality-wise, for the new Toyota Tacoma. Leave a comment. Let me know if you agree. And don't forget, click that subscribe button. Thanks for watching. Stay safe out there. Bye.